Well, after a day of gloom and doom, we've got another day of gloom and doom as another storm system heads up the coast. Flood watches are up. We'll be taking a look at that. There's yet another system behind that one that will be coming into the weekend, and maybe, just maybe, we could squeeze out a dry day in between all this. So we'll be taking a look at that and lots of other things, a peek at the long range tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the descriptor to this live stream, and be sure you use the coupon code winter2324 for anything you purchase on the Tempest website, be it the weather station or any of the other gadgets and gizmos that they have, including smart weather fashion. So if you do, use that code and you will get 10% off. Hi, Joe's not here yet. I'm guessing he probably has gotten a little hung up with his talk. I haven't gotten a message from him, so that's what I'm assuming. But I figured I'd get it started. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight. Excuse me. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight. And those of you who aren't on the chat board, but perhaps you're lurking around in the background, that's fine too. And make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you will never miss the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is usually on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. However, uh, because of Joe's commitments, we are at 8:30 tonight, and we will be at 8:30 tomorrow night, and back at 7:30 on Thursday. Right, Joe Rayo?
Hello. Hello.
Yes, we're
I
on
was
the
actually,
air.
I've
We're on
actually
the air.
waited. I was actually waiting for a couple of minutes, and I saw you do my 10% line. I posted on the chat board. I said, "I'm here. I'm waiting."
I just didn't get the thing didn't come up until I clicked on it just a couple of seconds ago.
You know, it's technology, Joe. Technology.
Oh, so I guess it was a delay in getting to me.
Whatever.
You know, all
But here
sorts of
we are.
all
Somebody,
sorts of
somebody on the chat board I noticed said, "What a crappy day and what a crappy weather pattern." But of course, I prefer to use gloom and doom, as Mr.
right. It's
said.
trademarked.
Yes.
It's trademarked. You owe me $10.
Yes. Maybe you
Anyway, if
should
you like,
have copyrighted that.
well, maybe.
And
Um,
I wish I copyrighted for 21 years on News 12 Westchester. Whenever I thought that a particular day was going to be outstanding with sunshine and blue
right, the
skies,
pick of the week.
I call it the pick of the week. Now I'm seeing Lonnie Quinn, I'm seeing Lee Goldberg, I'm seeing everybody use pick of the week on their. I mean it. I should have copyrighted that. The only difference is that when I had it on my 7 day, you would see POW with an exclamation point, and whenever you saw that, you knew that hey, some really great weather's coming. But
Yes, but Joe, then you'd have to, then you'd have to deal with cease and desist letters, and your law staff would be so overworked.
right,
You know,
right.
and
It's
where would you put all the money that you would get in the settlements? I
oh,
mean, it's such a burden.
I would figure that out. Hey, one other thing, and it
Yes,
happened just literally before my library talk that I just did. I mean, I came
yes.
downstairs and, upstairs, we noticed that we had lost the internet. And I said, "Oh, okay, well, this occasionally happens. I have to start a reboot and everything, and it comes back." I came down here, flicked on the light, and the light didn't go on. And I looked around and I said, "Wait a minute, there's no power in my office. What's going on here?" And for whatever reason, this room, this office, the circuit breaker clicked off. I don't know why it did that. It was the only one in the whole house that did that, but it clicked off. And I'm saying to myself, my God, can you imagine if I was doing my library talk or doing Joe and Joe, and all of a sudden everything got dark and the internet disappeared and you guys would disappear as well. I don't know why that happened. Hopefully it will not happen again, but a little, talk about technology. That's another thing that you have to be concerned with sometimes.
You're sitting up tonight.
Excuse me?
You're sitting up tonight.
I'm not sitting up. I just rearranged the camera a little bit to
Oh,
make it.
okay.
Does it look better or worse? Or
Well, it's cutting off the top of your head.
oh well, then what we got to do is we got to let me see. If I do something like this, yeah. Oh, and now my shutter passed out. How about that?
That's better. But we'll fix it later.
Whatever.
Okay. Bobby Livingsworth, thank you for hitting the tip jar. And don't forget, if you like the show, hit the like button. Because when we get to 100 likes, Joe gets to dingle the bells. And speaking of which, for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for this gloom and doom that we're in. It's kind of that way today. Actually, it started out with a little bit of sun here this morning in North Georgia, and then it just got cloudy all day. Had a teensy bit of rain around 2 o'clock, just as I was running out to Walmart, and that was it. But you had that. You know, if I wasn't the only one that was thinking along the lines of the fact that the system on the radar yesterday, when we were looking at it in terms of the radar signature, that it's sort of looked like a system in the summertime, a tropical system of some kind, maybe like a tropical depression or a remnant tropical depression or a remnant tropical low of some sort. A few other people pointed that out today. So I guess I'm glad. I wasn't real, I wasn't alone in it. It just looks so strange. But that played on through. From what I saw, it was generally a quarter to a half an inch of rain in most spots, so produced a little bit less than advertised, unless there were a few places that I missed.
Well, right here in Putnam Valley, we picked up just under a half an inch.
Okay,
So that was a pretty good, yeah, pretty good. But now we have to batten down for the next round of wet weather, which will be, it would appear, starting later tomorrow and on to especially the first half of tomorrow night. And as quickly as it moves in, Joe, it looks like it's going to quickly move out. But in that short time frame, we could pick up, depending upon where you are, I suppose, 1.5, maybe even 2 inches of rain, maybe even
yeah,
more.
I think the best bet for the highest amounts will probably be Long Island, southern and southeastern New England. I think those areas might wind up with two, maybe even, as you said, a little bit more in some places. Two and a half, three tops, I think. But the ground is soaked. I mean, I imagine, between the rain from Saturday and then the rain today, the ground is pretty saturated. So the threshold for a little some flooding, I think, is not really all that high.
We are under, when I say we, I mean here in the Putnam County area and for New York. Um, the main zone, as you just pointed out, according to WPC, the slight risk for flash flooding or significant flooding is for places east and north of the northeast and east of New York City. There is a slight risk for flooding, and there's only a marginal risk most everywhere else. So in one way, shape, or form, it's going to be wet and gloomy, and just be ready for that again tomorrow and into at least part of tomorrow night.
And in fact, I just put the WPC map because I happen to have it up on the screen. The WPC map, yeah, slight risk for the eastern half of Massachusetts, Rhode Island, much of Connecticut except the Northwest, New York City, the lower Hudson Valley, Long Island, and much of New Jersey except the westernmost part of the state. And those areas to the west, as you said, the marginal risk, which runs from southwestern Maine and New Hampshire, and then kind of curls around into the Catskills, eastern PA, easternmost PA, eastern Maryland, and Delaware. And that's the one highlight. Also, should note that there's a marginal risk for flash flooding in on the right on the other side in Southern California, from halfway between Los Angeles and San Francisco, south all the way to San Diego. So it's wet weather on both sides, and flood watches are up for much of the New Jersey counties, with the exception of the northwestern counties, and then the southernmost counties are not in a flood watch. Long Island, New York City, Hudson Valley, Connecticut, pretty much, Joe. I've seen it. I've noticed that wherever WPC puts that, you puts the slight risk. I guess when they put slight risk, that's the trigger for them to put flood watches up. Just a guess on my part, but I've noticed that that's happened a few more than a few times. So the flood watch pretty much matches up with the WPC slight risk. But that's my theory anyway.
Well, they've
And
if the National Weather Service, if for example the National Weather Service Forecast Office in Upton did not issue any kind of a watch for this upcoming event, I'm sure that they would get a nasty phone call. Well, not a nasty phone call, but they probably get a phone call from the folks down in College Park, Maryland, where the where the Weather Prediction Office is, saying, "Hey, aren't you guys looking? We put a slight risk for flooding for
well,
Long Island and coastal Connecticut. Why aren't you guys doing anything about it? You know?"
that
So
that conversation would go something like this. Um, the WPC person would be talking to the person at the Weather Service office and saying, we were watching the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, and we noticed because they put up our risk for flash flooding map, and you don't have those flood watches. I'm sure it was just a simple oversight on someone's part, um, and you'll correct it momentarily. That's how that conversation would go.
you really think, huh?
Oh, I don't think, Joe. I know we have so many lurkers in the background. Taylor Swift. I mean, she watches almost continuously.
Yep.
Um, and I hesitate to mention some of the other people that watch this show, but Bobby Livingsworth watches the show. He's on the chat board tonight, and he hit the tip jar. Thank you, Bobby, for doing that. So let's good. Let's get on with it here. We still have they never seem to go away, but they are slowly but surely disappearing. We still have a few winter storm warnings in the west, and winter weather advisories in Northern California, Southern Oregon, southern half of Idaho, uh, the eastern border to Wyoming. We've got winter storm warnings on both sides, but other than that, really not much going on. I haven't put up any flood watches across the south yet because most of the heaviest rain is going to come with the system uh, that's going to be at the end of the week. That's going to be up in the northeast and mid-Atlantic states on Saturday. So there's a little bit of time to buy. Meanwhile, on the latest surface map, that pesky little low, the actual low center has been analyzed somewhere just south and west of Sandy Hook, with a small occluded front and a cold front that's offshore and a warm front that's offshore. But the rain from this is now well away from the low center, unlike yesterday and this morning when it was actually pretty close. Radars were pretty interesting today. There's the frontal boundary to the west, running through the Lakes Ontario and Erie, and then cutting down through Northwest Ohio and Indiana with a couple of waves along it. Then that frontal boundary goes all the way back to Texas and then swings around and goes up the Rockies. We still have you know lows being analyzed off the coast of California as well as in southeastern Oregon. That's producing some of that winter weather that we pointed out. That seems to be going on there. And
Before you continue, there are
yes,
people on the chat board that are saying things like um, that the video is not refreshing. There's a lot of buffering going on, going back
yeah,
and forth.
I seem to be having a similar problem here. Let me just figure this out here. Uh, okay, hold on, folks. There's a lot of weird things going on with the internet. I mean, you notice that Facebook got shut down, was pretty much out this morning. And in some places it still is. Okay, so I have refreshed it here on my end and it seems to be okay. Are you
It's okay for
okay?
me. Yeah, it's okay for me.
All right, yeah, folks. There's a lot of internet stuff that's going on today, so I it's not me. I'm fine. So let's hope it stays that way, and hopefully, uh, if you're having a problem, close out and come back in because that might clear it up. All right, so let's in the meantime, let's go to the satellite loop, and we are seeing if you look up in New England, you can see the swirl there that's still there, running northeastward. with that short wave, while the surface lows gotten left behind for now. That's exiting to the northeast, and right behind it, we have a slightly more impressive system. I mean, more impressive in the sense that it's starting to load up with quite a bit of moisture, and we have lots of clouds from Virginia down into Georgia and Florida, back to Alabama and Tennessee and Kentucky, and that is slowly progressing to the east. We still have a lot of moisture coming into the west, and that is streaming up into the northern Rockies. And of course, that's one of these leftover storm systems. There still just seems to be an endless flow of moisture that's coming in off the Pacific, and the radars are kind of busy. Still raining up in New England. There's some showers in the eastern half of Massachusetts and Rhode Island, even over eastern Long Island and southeast Connecticut, some showers there. Also in parts of upstate New York and into Vermont and New Hampshire and moving into Maine. That's the first thing. And then you see the frontal boundary showers from the St. Lawrence River Valley across the Lake Ontario and Erie. And then they become more widespread when you get down into Kentucky and southern Indiana, southern Ohio, and then even more widespread as you get into Georgia. And looks like a line of thunderstorms approaching the west coast of Florida. A couple of special marine warnings are up at the moment, at least as of 8:40 p.m. Eastern time. So there's that. And that's our system for Wednesday. And then the system that we're going to be dealing with on Saturday, bringing in moisture into Northern California, southern Idaho, and some scattered snows in parts of the central and also into the northern Rockies. WPC's rainfall, Joe. Um, I don't know if you can see the map.
I'm seeing right now, excuse me, what I'm seeing right now on my screen is the rainfall from WPC.
Okay, so why don't you tell them what they're doing in the eastern part of the United States?
Okay, well, why don't I, before I do that, why don't I bring on my own screen this graphic up, because what I like to do is you like to look at the pretty colors, and I like to look at the contours, which give you a better idea or
All
more
right,
a better handle as to who's getting what in terms of rainfall amounts. And I'm going to do that right now.
all right. Hold on a second. Just let me.
And oh,
Uh,
well,
Go ahead.
there
You
you
can
go.
go. You can do it now.
All right. So what I'm seeing right now on this is a lot of rain over the next 7 days.
Well, you got to
Uh,
share the map.
oh, I'm sorry. Well, of course, that's what I'll do. If you want to see what I'm looking at,
Oh, I mean, I can put my map back up, and then you can talk about it off your map.
oh, do that. I'll be happy to share with you. Can you see that? This is the
Oh yeah,
second.
that's so. That is so makes it so much clearer. Go on.
It looks like spaghetti, doesn't it? I
Yes,
mean,
it
for
does.
the light blue lines or contours is corresponding to 1 inch of rain, and you can see that we're well within that zone. And in fact, it looks like we're talking about for the immediate New York City metropolitan area, if I'm not mistaken, we're looking at the potential of something on the order of two or more inches. Let me see here, one, 1.5, 2.5, and there's even a small zone right here which encompasses Rhode Island, extreme eastern Connecticut, and southeastern Massachusetts, which I believe is 3 inches of rain. So over the next 7 days, going all the way out to next Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. God, I hate to say that now, but we are going to go back to daylight time over the weekend. We're looking at, in some cases in parts of the Northeast, as much as 3 inches of rain, and a good amount of that is probably going to come our way during the next 24 to 36 hours with this next wave of or ripple of moisture and energy across our area. So that's why we have the flood watch in effect for much of the immediate New York area and Long Island and Connecticut for tomorrow late and into Thursday. And there'll be another chance of more wet weather heading our way over the weekend on Saturday into part of Sunday. This wasn't exactly what we just went through. This wasn't a washout of a weekend. We did have a great day on Sunday after a rather miserable Saturday. I wish I could say the same thing about this weekend, but it looks like both weekend days are going to be marred by cloud cover and again by wetness, especially from late Saturday on into early Sunday. And that will be system number three. System number one affected us today. System number two, late tomorrow into tomorrow night and part of Thursday. And then the next round on Saturday into Sunday. And again, for some parts of the Northeast, in excess of 3 inches of rain expected from the total amount from these systems. Mostly, I guess, it's backloaded now. I mean, what we just went through
Right.
isn't included in this map,
Well, that starts at 8 o'clock tonight. So,
right? So
so,
this is
so,
so subtract. I mean, not subtract, but if we were to add what we had today, we'd probably have to add another half or 3/4 of an inch. But certainly that's that's certainly not necessary with all the wet weather that's going to be heading our way between now and this upcoming weekend.
excellent. Well
And
done.
also you could see out here. I mean, my goodness, it never ends for these people in the Pacific Northwest down to Northern California. Another round of very heavy uh, precipitation. I don't even know. There's no legend on this map, so I didn't even know what this shade of green indicates.
It's
I
probably 5 to 10.
something like some crazy amount, but so you can see on both coasts, Joe, they're going to be getting hit pretty hard over the next week or so.
Indeed. Indeed, they are. And yeah, those orange areas in the color, that's kind of why I like to use the color maps because I can make it out better with the colors than I can with the contours sometimes. But there are areas of 5 to 7 inches in the orange spots that you see in Northern California near the coast and along the Oregon coast and along the coast of Washington and on up into on the Canada side over Vancouver. So very wet there, and we've got pockets of a half to 3/4 inch, and this is going to be snow in the Northern Rockies and also in the Central Rockies. And speaking of snow, this is the probability in the west for at least two, and you see where it stretches out and covers those areas that have ongoing warnings. We also have an area up in northern Minnesota and northernmost North Dakota, another place that didn't get a lot of snow this winter. And then in the Northeast, in northern Maine, we have an area of 50% or higher probability for at least two. If I switch it to eight, we know they even have low probability of eight in northern Maine. Oh, good Lord. And in the West, a small pocket in central Colorado, a small pocket in western Wyoming where it's 50% or higher, and that's it. Now, as far as the weekend is concerned, the WPC in the long range for Saturday into Sunday, and also for Sunday into Monday, has some 10 to 30% uh, probability here in parts of from the Catskills, which I think is kind of too far south, if you ask me, but Catskills all the way up into the Adirondacks with some areas of 30 to 50%, and also in Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. And then for Sunday, they go a little more bullish for the Adirondacks, for Vermont, for New Hampshire, and particularly for central and northern New Hampshire and much of the northern half of Maine where they've got a 50 to 70% chance for at least three. So let's look at the HRRR. I think we might have the new one. Let me see if we got the new one here. Give me a moment while I find my mouse and get it to work. There we go. Let's see the zero. Yes, we have the 0Z. So this is the HRRR, and there's not the rain that's in the southeast now is um, moving over Georgia and that line of storms that we talked about that was off the coast of Florida moves across. You've got this kind of comma-shaped area with this low in central Georgia tomorrow morning, not too far from Atlanta, by the way. And that rain starts to push northward. There's also an arm of rain along the coast. It's kind of like sort of an inverted trough that runs up the coast, and that pushes rain from off the ocean. And by 1 o'clock, it's moving over Long Island and coastal New Jersey, and then it just continues to spread northward as the low moves into eastern North Carolina, and then all the precip blossoms out in upstate New York and in Pennsylvania, back through Maryland, Western Virginia, West Virginia. You can see the yellows there, the radar echoes, some heavier downpours from that inverted trough that comes in from off the ocean. And that probably will put down a fair amount of rain tomorrow afternoon and evening during probably the rush hour. And then during tomorrow night and into Thursday morning, that batch shifts eastward. You can see where the HRRR has snow up in northern Maine with this. Um, I don't know how quick it's going to improve on Thursday because this low is off the New Jersey coast Thursday morning, and it just sort of meanders out there. And in
Yeah.
fact, there's, I guess, with the upper trough coming through, there's a little bit of shower activity that forms on the backside of the low for Thursday afternoon across New Jersey, Long Island, and the Hudson Valley. I don't know what I hit. I hit a. There we go. So there's that. So I think we could probably wait till Friday as far as improving weather conditions are concerned. And then of course you already see the rain that's in Iowa, Missouri, and Arkansas with a little bit of snow back in Nebraska. That's the next one. So if the weather turns out to be nice on Friday, which it probably should, I mean, I would think Friday should be an okay day, even though the wind is going to be somewhat onshore-ish. But we'll squeeze in one day, and then uh, here comes the next one. And then you can see the heavy rain moving across the south, as well as in the middle Mississippi Valley and into the Ohio Valley. This low, Joe, back late last week, where you had a couple of runs that were trying, it was trying to take a low. Uh, east of Delaware, south of Long Island, with cold air and snow everywhere. And it's amazing. No matter how many times the long range on the GFS will put a snowstorm in, they fall for it almost every single time.
It's
But
you say when the storm goes to our west, there's no problem. Then it's pretty much a foregone conclusion. It's going to be mostly rainy and wet and everything else. But every time they try to push the storm just to our south and cut off the warm air advection and keep us in cold air, and this is not immediate or within a day or two, but 4, 5, 6 days out or more, showing the potential of a big winter storm, and that's what a lot of people were talking about. Oh, have you seen the guidance models? Oh, for the 4th and 5th of March, it looks like it could be a big, and it never ever seems to work out.
no, it really doesn't. It's weird. Um,
These are
but
probably the same people who brought you the 10-day forecast on so many television stations across the nation now. So,
right, correct.
for
Well,
what they are.
this looks like, during the day on Saturday, there's not a whole lot of precip that falls. But by Saturday evening, it's mostly Saturday evening into early Sunday morning. It's like a fairly, it's a solid shot. I mean, there might even be a thunderstorm or two involved in this. We'll see. But after that goes out, it does turn colder and drier behind it. And then the low becomes a rather strong storm in the Gulf of Maine and south of Nova Scotia. Uh, Looks like, going forward, if I just widen this out, let me do that. Um, I'm just keeping an eye on things in case the video is getting hung up again. Um, there we go. So this is what it looks like on the big screen across the country, and you can see the rain that comes into Southern California. That's that slight risk that they had from halfway between San Francisco and Los Angeles down to San Diego. But here's the Saturday storm. Moves into the Great Lakes, the deep south on Friday, then starts to push into the northeast for Saturday, and then after Sunday, it after Saturday night, weather conditions on Sunday look to improve. The gradient actually on Sunday it gets kind of tight
Oh
with
yeah,
with this deepening low.
I noticed it on the GFSX, the tabular long range prediction model, that they were showing winds of 20 and 25 on Sunday. That suggests that sustained winds could be somewhere in the 20 to 25 range and maybe even gusting to over 40. So we may have a downright windy finish to the weekend on Sunday and maybe even into part of Monday. It looks like the winds will be dying down, but ever so slowly during the day. So again, we may be looking at wind as a major factor in our weather, not so much rain or snow or whatever, but wind as we move into the upcoming weekend.
Yeah, there's a quick shot of colder air that comes in behind this. Nothing spectacular. And then that goes out. Now, next week, interestingly enough, next week, at least through, well, it looks like at least into through Thursday, it's going to be dry. And then, on this latest run, it's got some kind of front that is moving eastward into the Great Lakes, and another one of these lows. This one comes out of the Gulf of Mexico and and moves up the coast. It's got a wrapped up coastal low. It's all rain, but it's got a wrapped up coastal low that runs up the east coast with a fairly tight gradient. I don't know how real this is, but it brings another big soaking rain for Saturday the 16th, and then Sunday is St. Patrick's Day. And with that, there's a cold front that comes through with rain, and go figure that.
Well,
And
they can't.
over,
I mean, you realize, of course, that because St. Patrick's Day is on a Sunday this year, that the annual St. Patrick's Day parade
is
in New
Saturday.
York City is going to be Saturday. And so, if what
Yes.
you just said is true, we may be looking at one of the rainier St. Patrick's Day parades in weather history for New York.
Now, interestingly enough, and this will turn out to be right, if only because of the fact that it's been trying to split the polar vortex in the stratosphere all winter long. It has failed every single time. Okay. And once again, we keep seeing the models splitting the vortex, and here it is. It actually occurs in about 6 days. So the confidence level should be a bit higher. And then the main part of the polar vortex in the stratosphere drops into eastern Canada, Joe, and is completely split. So, I mean, what this suggests is probably, let's say, after St. Patrick's Day, that there'll be a general trend to normal, or maybe a bit below normal. I don't think you can really go too hog wild with this, if only because of the fact that there's not really a whole lot of Arctic air. And if you look at the upper air on the 500 millibar level, you do get some cross polar flow, but the air in Canada in March is not. I mean, it can be cold, but it's not crazy cold. We get into a different kind of a pattern for the last 10 days of the month. I would just say, I mean, I don't know how exactly correct this is going to be. Um, you want to look for a small window opening. Maybe it comes in the last 10 days, but as I've been saying for days, if it does, it's going to have to be so perfect. I mean, so perfect for something to happen, for one last gasp of a snow chance. But I mean, other than that, I'm not really impressed by this.
Well, you're absolutely right, though. It's now very late in the season. We don't have the wiggle room that we may have had, let's say, from late December to early February for air masses, marginally cold air masses. Late March, again, you have to be right, or mid March, you have to be right on target. Otherwise, it's simply not going to happen.
I'm just looking at the ensemble. The ensembles have about as deep a trough in the long range as you usually see. This is out of 330 hours. Fairly deep trough in the east and pretty decent ridging out in the west. And this would be for, approaching St. Patrick's Day and going into that week of the 17th. Uh, Deep trough in the east, ridging out in the west. Where was this in January? Where was this in February? Where was this in December? But all the models have this. I'm just going to really quick look at the new European AI. Oh, and by the way, I did see a post today. I think it was Dave Tolerus who put up the schedule of what the European is doing. So the operational European is not going to disappear until October, but they just added all this additional computing power, and they put it into the ensembles, and they put it into the AI, the artificial intelligence. So we've got a little bit of the new technology getting in here. Look at this, at 132 hours, it's got a wrapped up cutoff right off the New Jersey coast, and that's for next Monday. Why would be doing that for next Monday? See what it does at the surface. Oh, the low's already up to the north. So that's that.
That's the low. That's the low that, as we just noted a few minutes ago,
that
will bring
goes
strong
the
winds.
wind.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah,
And, deep trough dives into the eastern part of the United States, uh, St. Patrick's Day weekend, let's call it. And, I mean, it's a colder look beyond that, but, you're at the point now where you're at March 20th, where the normal high is in much of eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England's in the upper 40s and low 50s. So again, what are you going to be able to do with that? I don't know. It would have to be utterly perfect to pull a late season snow. I actually would feel better in a winter where if we were in a winter where we were having snow events. If we would have had snow events in the months that you're supposed to have them. I think the probability of having something in March is higher as opposed to a winter where you've had no snow events at all, and then you suddenly get into March and a couple of snow events pop up. Not saying it can't happen, but it's just that I would just feel better in terms of my own mindset in terms of probability. I'd be more bullish if we had had a snowy winter and we were looking at that pattern for the end of March. I would be more bullish on the idea that we would get some snow, but not after what we've been dealing with.
yeah. I understand, and yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about exactly what you're talking about, where sometimes you have a winter where, anything and everything will cause it to snow. It'll snow at the drop of a pin. And then there are other winters, and this is one of those winters where it's like pulling hen's teeth. It just doesn't work, no matter what you do and no matter what you try. So it gets very frustrating.
Yes, it is. Um, okay.
Incidentally, incidentally, if you want to give me a chance, and this is probably the only time I'm going to be able to do this, because again, we're going back on daylight time next week, this coming weekend. But I am looking at the new NAM uh, model, which is out as far as 31 hours,
Oh, go for it.
and so let me uh, let me just go on the share screen again, and we could take a look at this together. Um, and in fact, let me see if I can make it bigger here. There you go. How does that look? Now you get a
Yeah,
whole.
just yeah. Now you're good. Okay.
All right. So this is forecast hour number one. This is as of right now, as of 8 p.m. Tuesday, May the 5th, May the 5th, March the 5th. I wish I was May. Um, now, what we are seeing is the remnants of that system that came on by earlier today. I presume that that's what is being indicated here to the south of Down East Maine and just off of Cape Cod. And if we move things along now over the next 24 hours, you could see that, and what this does not show you is the fact that we're going to be stuck with lots of low hanging clouds, probably patchy areas of fog during the overnight, and maybe even a bit of mist and spotty drizzle. So even though it says that it's going to be bone dry, it's not necessarily going to be bone dry, but it's certainly going to be drier than what we went through earlier on in the day today. So as we move along, this is now 8 a.m. tomorrow, 8 a.m. on Wednesday. So if you got the commute to work tomorrow or to school will not be at all bad. Aside from, again, clouds and maybe some patches of fog here and there, you will not have a problematic trip to school or work tomorrow morning. Now, what we have been seeing in all of the other runs of all the other models is that sometime around midday or early afternoon, we get into a zone of much heavier precipitation. And sure enough, here at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, we have an arm of moderate to heavy rainfall across southern sections of New Jersey up to about the south end of Ocean County in New Jersey. Still not much happening across Long Island and northern New Jersey and the Hudson Valley. Continue moving northward, and now we're getting into 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The afternoon drive is just about ready to begin, and you can see that this area of heavy precipitation now covers most of the coastal areas of northeast, central, and south central New Jersey. It's raining, at least if we can believe this at face value, across of New York City, Long Island, although it's not raining so heavily to be concerned about flooding. Still nothing up where my area is, up in Putnam County and northern sections of Westchester County. Again, this is the latest 0Z North American model, the NAM model. Now let's move forward to 7 o'clock tomorrow evening, and you can see by now most of Long Island is in the moderate to heavy area of precipitation. Also, most of coastal sections of Connecticut, northern Westchester. I'm getting moderate to heavy rainfall here. But if this is correct, Joe, it looks like the back edge of the heavy duty rains have now pretty much bypassed New York. Northern New Jersey, central New Jersey has rain still, but it's more along the lines of light to moderate rainfall. And if we continue now all the way up to this is 10 o'clock tomorrow night, there seemingly is a hole. Now, this may very well be a zone of clouds, fog, mist, and drizzle. There's seemingly a second area here coming into southern New Jersey of possible moderate to heavy rain, and that slips up into central New Jersey by the time we get to midnight tomorrow night, and then into New York by 1 a.m. on Thursday morning. And then we continue another round of possible moderate to heavy rain crossing through Long Island Sound into southwestern Connecticut. And then it pretty well opens up. And after that, after, well, let's say about 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. on Thursday morning, the worst of it is over. You can see, according to the NAM, all of this activity is now pushed on way up to the north and east, up into eastern sections of New England, southernmost Maine. That's where the heavy duty stuff is. But now, as we move toward daybreak on Thursday morning, it's still going to be kind of moist, kind of wet, kind of cloudy, a bit foggy, but the main area or the main thrust of heavy duty precipitation is pretty well over. Well, you can see here 6 a.m. There's a couple of more shots of light to moderate shower activity crossing through the Hudson Valley. But really, the main area, the main zone where the potential exists for maybe a bit of flash flooding occurs right about here, right in the immediate New York area, between about, let's say 4 o'clock in the afternoon to about, 9 o'clock in the evening. So during that 4 or 5 hour time frame, which unfortunately will encompass your trip home from work or from school tomorrow, late tomorrow and tomorrow evening, that's when the rains will be at their worst. And then residual rain, residual showers, maybe a spurt or two of moderate to heavy activity, according to the NAM, through the rest of the overnight hours. But again, the main area is going to be right here. Let me just quickly check the total accumulated precipitation. And I will tell you, now we take it through 36 hours. I want to tell you that if you have been looking at the NAM from this morning and even until last night, much of the immediate tri-state area was enveloped in that light shade of salmon or pink coloration. Now, the pink is along the Jersey shoreline, but now we're looking at more of a light blue or dark shades of blue. This would be not for, let's say, 2 or 2.5 inches. The NAM apparently is cutting back. I won't be able to look at the FOOS data for another 15 or 20 minutes, but we'll probably be off air by then. But it looks like, Joe, that the NAM, at least this 0Z run, and this may be what we call a computer burp, because it has been constant in dumping large quantities of precipitation, more than the global models. We've been seeing from the NAM in the immediate tri-state area for the, let's say, 50 to 75 miles of Midtown Manhattan, we've been seeing rainfall totals over the last 2 or 3 primary runs of like 1.5 to 2.5 inches. This primary model, the 0Z run, has been showing less, only about 2, not even 2 inches, maybe more like 1 or 1.5 inches of rain. Whether or not this can be believed, whether or not this is, as I said, a burp, and that it'll go back to the drenching 2 and 2.5 inch totals that it's been saying for the last day or two with the 12Z run tomorrow morning, that is yet to be seen. So it's still going to rain, and it looks like it's going to rain heavily for a while, late tomorrow and tomorrow evening. But according to this latest model of the NAM, it may not be quite as bad as what had been previously advertised.
Well, let's wait and see what happens. Models love to do that when you get close.
Oh yeah,
They,
they
they
love to
always
change.
love to do that.
They change their minds. That's the most classic story. Quickly is the '83 megalopolitan storm, where just hours before the main event was to occur, all of a sudden the LFM, the 2.LFM, or maybe it was the NGM, I don't even remember anymore, took most of that stuff away. And there were places like Albany and Boston that were dropping their weather advisories, saying, well, it looks like the storm is going to pass to our south. And this is after day after day after day of advertising a heavy duty snowstorm. And I had a big argument with the deputy superintendent at the sanitation department who wanted to send a lot of his men home saying, oh, I hear from the weather service that it's not going to be as bad as we thought. And I told him, I said, look, let's wait until the next computer run in a few hours, midday run, and see what happens. Because sometimes I've seen this happen where they pull a lot of the stuff away and then all of a sudden they put it back. And that's what I come to call it a computer burp. We may be looking at a computer burp with this NAM 0Z run, and by cutting back on the precipitation, we'll see tomorrow whether or not that's going to be the story. I will say that the global models, Joe, the global models compared to the NAM, the last 2 or 3 days, the NAM has been dumping hot and heavy on us, and the global models like the GFS and the European have been sending the main area of heavy duty rains just to the east and to the northeast of New York, covering Long Island and Connecticut. So who knows? Maybe the NAM is finally wised up and is now following what the global models have been saying for the past few days, or then again, maybe not. We'll see.
You just made me want to check here. Um, this might be a good test. This is the 12Z European AI model. All right, so the 12Z European AI model has, well, okay, half, 3/4, 1 inch, inch and a quarter to an inch and a half. It's got some slightly higher amounts in parts of southeast Massachusetts. Other than that, that's what that run had. That was the 12Z. Now the 18Z is it's coming out now, so it's only out. Um,
You're
oh,
looking
it's
at
out.
the you're looking at the AI model.
The AI, yeah, the 18Z is only out 24 hours.
The
Let me,
operational should be out by now, out through 90 hours.
yeah, the operational is. Let's take a look at the operation. The operational. Um, Yeah, the AI had actually more to had the half inch of liquid more to the west. It's got some kind of hole in central PA into central Virginia for some reason, but it gives a half, 3/4, an inch to an inch and a quarter um, into Thursday morning. This is the 24 hour. Let me just do the total. Just sometimes it's a little different. There you go. So it'll be the European gives like an inch to an inch and a quarter. So, look, this kind of looks like something that could wind up producing some upside. So, if the models are lowering their amounts, maybe that upside will be easier to achieve. So, we can look at it that way.
Again on the Foos. I remember seeing this morning that they actually gave two consecutive 6 hour intervals of 1 inch or more for LaGuardia, and that was an eye opener for at least for me. And I said, "Wow, that's really on at least the immediate New York City area." So I'll be interested to see tonight. And again, it comes out in about 15 minutes what the Foos is saying for LaGuardia for this particular run, whether or not it's cut back from what they were saying, last night and this morning.
Um, Tim, or AKA Latex Dreams, does AI use your maps and data? I mean, I'm not sure what you mean by the question using my maps and data. This is the European, the company that puts out the European model now has an AI version, and it's available. So, well, since it's available, we're showing it. It's nothing I'm doing, just to be clear.
Well,
Um,
is that you're the artificial intelligence?
I'm the artificial intelligence, correct? Artificial and intelligence, all at the same time.
Right.
Uh, all right. Do we do a Briller Jeopardy for Jeopardy?
I mean, I have it if you want to do it. It's
I,
9:20.
I'm okay with it. My sheets aren't dry yet, so
But all right.
I run the dryer during the show.
Oh, that's what I ran the dryer this afternoon during during the midday or mid afternoon hour. All right, so this is what happens, folks. This is what happens when two guys who spent most of their time on television, when we're retired now, we spend more time in the laundry room. uh, anyway, on this Briller Jeopardy, exclusively for the chat board. This is a chat board Briller Jeopardy, everyone. Listen up. Okay, you ready? And has nothing to do with weather. This is once again a movie uh, Briller Jeopardy. What are the top 10 biggest box office movies of all time, not counting inflation? And the chat board has to get at least six to pass. So, what again are the top 10 biggest box office movies of all time, not
So if
counting
they're
it?
not, so if they're not adjusted for inflation, so that throws me out of this competition completely because then all of them, those movies were probably after the year 2000. I'm thinking. So I, I will let the chat board do this.
Okay.
Uh,
The problem is that a lot of the people in the chat board are saying it's hard enough to.
yeah, I'll tell you what. Why don't we hold off on it? Because this is not my problem. I'm on my new computer. Everything's been fine. A bunch of the time. So this is one of those odd things that's going on. And I think you know, there's been various internet outages today all over the place. So and I saw something this morning. I got something this morning from YouTube saying that they were having some problems. So this is probably a continuation of this. So why don't we save this for tomorrow?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's save this for tomorrow. And we'll be back tomorrow night. It's another late start tomorrow night, 8:30 Eastern time. And then
Right.
we're back to normal on Thursday. All right.
Back to normal so that all of us can see the State of the Union on Thursday night.
I'm not going to watch the State of the Union. I'm going to bed.
It's all you're going to bed. I mean, what else can you do, Joe? All the stations are going to cover it. So I mean, you can't go to
Not the
another.
porn stations, Joe.
All right. And here in New York,
I have Netflix. I've got Amazon Prime. I'll just put something on from there.
if you're in New York, all of the stations in New York will be covering the State of the Union, with the sole exception of Channel 9, WWOR. They'll probably be running all evening reruns of Family Feud. So you have your choice. You can either watch Family Feud or
Or
the
you can
state.
go on Netflix, or you can go on Amazon Prime, or HBO, or Cinemax, or Peacock, or Paramount, or Paramount Plus, or Hulu, um, uh, Tubo, Freevee. Freevee is a good one. So
Or
you don't have
Bongo.
to watch. You don't
Or
have to watch the State of
you can go
the
you
Onion.
can go on the Bongo Congo station and watch King Leonardo and Odie Coloni if you
Right.
want.